Welcome in, everyone, to another live episode of What's Bruin. I am your host, Chris Nozick, joined as I am every episode by my esteemed co-host, the one, the only, Dom Tiano. Dom, how are you? It seems like we just did a show yesterday, but it was Friday.
I'm so excited and I just can't fight it. I've been looking forward to this all day. I baked some cookies today, so got my fill of cookies. Saved some for later on in the show. I'll let you explain why.
We have tentatively scheduled and was confirmed earlier. So, barring any last minute adjustments, we have a special guest joining us in about 45 minutes. But our time frame is 6:30, so we're going to keep to that. And when he jumps in, we will bring him on. I think a good place to start though is now former head coach Jim Montgomery, already with a new job. Happy to see that for him. He's very deserving of it with the St. Louis Blues. Dom, thoughts on Montgomery's new landing spot? Think it's a fit?
Probably for him and his family, it's a fit. Good for him. 5 days after losing his job in Boston, he got another one. I'm curious to see how he will fit in with Claude Julien there as an assistant. Have a lot of questions there. A lot of questions about the term. 5 years is a long time for an NHL coach. I don't know.
Especially these days. Although, I'm glad you mentioned the term because the Blues right now, they're seventh in the wild card on the Western Conference. Are we looking at a time where they're going into a rebuild? And does a 5-year term for a coach who's a good teacher of the game, good young players coach, does that signal that they might be looking to sell come the trade deadline later?
I don't think so. I think Armstrong has described it several times as a retool, not a rebuild, and that's what they're going to stick to. He even said today in his presser that bringing in Montgomery is not going to speed up their younger players getting to the NHL. So I don't think so.
I will say it certainly makes the Trent Frederick to St. Louis talks a little more interesting.
Yeah,
but anyways, we have our own Bruins to talk about. The current Bruins, they are now currently 2-0 under interim head coach Joe Sacco. They've looked a lot better. They're getting pucks to the net. They're shooting a lot more. They look better. I can't say they look a lot better. I mean, they do look a lot better, but you mentioned the 9-ish game bump, and is that what we're seeing, or are we just seeing a hockey team that's kind of finding what they're good at again?
It's still going to take time. I'm encouraged by what I see on the penalty kill. They're aggressive up top at the blue line. They're in lanes. Their sticks are in great position. They're keeping pretty much everything to the outside. Defensively, it's funny because I was having this conversation with somebody today. Doesn't matter who the defensive pair was, they were always chasing as a pair, whether it was behind the goal line on one side of the ice or the other. You see them now that one defenseman goes after the puck with the first forward back, and the other defenseman stays in front of the net. There was an instance last night where I believe it was Peak and Zadorov were on the ice. Peak went over to the left side and was battling along the boards, and Zadorov was in front of the net. And it was a battle for the puck, and you could see Zadorov take 2 strides towards the boards to go help out his partner. stop, and then back up to the front of the net where he's supposed to be. So it's a learning process or an adjustment process. You got to remember with Zadorov, he had to learn a new system, and now 20 games later, he's learning another new system.
Does this system seem to fit his game style a little more, though? Or do you think it doesn't really matter for him?
No, I think it fits his game more. It's just going to take him a little bit more time to learn it. For the other guys, they've been there. So McAvoy, Peak, Carlo, Lowright, they know the system because that's what they played last year. So it's just getting back used to it because let's not forget, for 20 games, they were all trying to learn something new, and now they're going back to what they know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is a system that will really help a guy like Lorai. I mean, the good news is they are 2-0. So even as they're learning, they're getting the much needed points at this point in the season, especially given how they started. And it was low scoring games on high volume shots, but again, trying to take away the positives. You got Pastrnak with 2 points in 2 games. You've got 2 power play goals in 2 games. Lorai's back, got a scoring touch again. Marchand's got 2 points in those 2 games. Brazeau got a goal. Lindholm got a goal. So like some of these guys are starting to get the points. They're finding it again.
You got to remember, they went 11 periods without a 5-on-5 goal.
Yeah.
To me, like I've said from day one, after the firing was announced, that it's not about wins and losses in these 9 games. It's about seeing improvement. We've seen them. I'm with Joe Sacco in believing that once they fix all the other aspects of their game, that the offense will eventually come. That third period was almost a clinic by the Bruins, where the third period has been their downfall for the first 20 games. Was it perfect? No, but a big improvement. They limited Detroit to what? 3 shots on goal in the third period?
That sounds about right, yeah.
And so that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, there's that. There's the results are obviously what you need the results because you're trying to be a playoff team, and so there's some positivity there. But also, they're not taking as many penalties. They're not.
No.
I mean, yeah, the game against Utah, they took 5 penalties. 3 of them were Mark Kostelik, and 2 of them were fighting majors. So, but the question then becomes: would they have won the game if he doesn't drop the gloves twice? Was that enough to keep him in the game mentally and kind of help him turn the corner? And, it's that age-old question of does fighting belong in the game and how and all that stuff. But they got the result, and if I'm not mistaken, they haven't given up a power play goal in the two games. Their penalty kill seems to have turned a little bit of a corner.
Well, it was even before the firing. I think they've killed 14 straight.
Is it that many?
Something like that, yeah. So it goes back to before the firing that the current streak has started on. I believe it's somewhere around there.
Yeah, and then the one yesterday's game, they had, what was it, 3 penalties or 4 penalties? So,
that was the 5th best power play in the league entering the night.
Yeah, so they're, again, I want to say turning a corner, that's the hopeful side of things, but we just won't know until probably 10, 15 games from now. But the results are positive. The look of things is a lot more positive than it was a week and a half ago. And when we talked to Gail on Friday, it just feels like the room is a lot more relaxed than it was a week and a half ago.
Yeah, it sure feels like it, doesn't it? Even when they're doing their post-game interviews, you can see I don't want to say a look of relief on the players' faces and in their voices, uh, um, but definitely a more comfortable feeling from them.
Yeah, you can almost see less tension.
Yeah, exactly.
And it like Sacco made the comments today. He was asked about getting Pasternak going again, and his plan is to just let him play out of it. Like he doesn't need a pep talk. He's just gonna let him ride it out. He's a good player. He's a great player in this league. He can score goals and just he knows what he's got to do. It's just a matter of letting him figure it out and do it.
I think again, it goes back to the change in system. He came into the season and it was a change in system where they weren't looking for shot quantity, they were looking for quality. You look at that opportunity he had in the third period where he had a gaping 5-hole. He was 2 feet from the goaltender. All he had to do was touch it in, and he tried to make the perfect pass across the goalmouth for, you know, David Pasternak last year would not have passed up that opportunity.
No,
So, now he's got to go back to what it was like before.
and Pasternak's the kind of player that you want with a shot first mentality. He's got a heck of a shot. It's going to be very interesting. I know we talked about it being. I do want to ask you this because on Friday, I know we talked about it being a road trip. They brought up Mark McLaughlin. He didn't get in the lineup on Saturday. Do you see him maybe getting a game coming up to kind of fish things out? Because he had five goals in 5 straight games down in Providence before he got the call up. So do you see them giving him a game here?
They might. Like, I think Sacco come right out and said that, he wanted to give Johnson another look. And the reason they sent Merkulov down was better him playing in Providence on the weekend than, and what a beautiful goal he scored to win it on Friday, I believe it was. But they wanted him to play rather than sitting up on the ninth floor watching, which was a good call for him in Providence. And, Johnson didn't look bad. But they were on the road, so they wanted an extra forward and thought, well, to call up McLaughlin, whether he plays or not, he earned an NHL paycheck for a day. Tuesday they're at home against Vancouver. They may just send him down. They don't need an extra body. But Wednesday they're on the road in Long Island, so they may keep him around. But I think at this point, to answer your question, you got to keep going with Johnson. Let him get into the flow of games for a few games and see how he helps you out.
I do think because there was a lot of shift in focus once the Montgomery firing came down, and I know that you've seen it on X, Twitter, that whole ordeal of the immediate turn to okay, now fire Don Sweeney, or the response of they fired the wrong guy. But realistically, when you look at how they've been building this team over the last few years, it didn't really seem to fit the Montgomery system.
No, not at all.
And so it almost seems like this breakup between coach and team was inevitable. Sweeney mentioned they had talked about an extension, but never really got anywhere with it. It sounds like they made him an offer. He said no. The dollar amount didn't really seem relevant. Now we see him 5 days later have a new job lined up. Like, I mean, he had to know teams were interested in what he brings to the table, but looking at this roster, it just doesn't look like it was ever a fit.
No, I didn't think so. But it is what it is. If it wasn't a fit, then you got to criticize Sweeney for not making the move earlier because he should have known that that's not the type of coach to coach the players that he assembled. Look, there's a lot of conspiracy theories going around now that um, Montgomery forced his way out because he wanted the St. Louis job, and uh, it got even bigger today after the hiring was announced. Look, I'm not going to say I know 100%. I've sent a message out hoping to get an answer for uh, or confirming what my belief is before we go off air tonight. But Jim Montgomery was still under contract with the Boston Bruins because he was relieved of his duties. Uh, doesn't mean that the contract is null and void. So, as far as I know, the Bruins needed permission or the Blues needed permission from the Bruins to actually talk to Montgomery, one, and two, to hire him. So the idea that Montgomery knew he was going to get the St. Louis job and forced his way out isn't true, because he couldn't have known that the Bruins absolutely would have let him out of his contract to take the job. They could have said no.
And I'm pretty sure you would know this better than me, but I'm pretty sure too that if the Blues salary, at least in this season, didn't match what the Boston salary was, then Boston has to pay the difference or something like that. Or
yeah,
maybe you can explain it. But I'm with you. I think that's a bullshit claim. I do think he knew that there were teams interested in him, but I really think it just came down to coming into this season, looking at the roster, looking at the progression from where they were 2 years ago when he came in to where they were last year. He knows he made mistakes. I mean, he's not stupid. He knows that it's a big question mark. They make him an offer, and he kind of looks at it and says, the roster and my system don't really fit. What are you going to do to help get players that fit my system? And Sweeney kind of looks at him and goes, this is what we have. You got to work with it. So he just kind of says, well, let's see where it goes.
Well, but the Bruins lowballed him. If the
rumors I was going to say, I have no doubt they probably did.
If the rumors are true that they offered him $3 million, that's a lowball, because top-notch coaches in the NHL make $5 million a season.
Do you consider him a top-notch coach?
On the right team, yeah.
And this wasn't the right team.
This wasn't the right team.
And I think we're seeing some confidence in some of these guys. Marchand looks more confident. Pasta looks like he's coming back to confidence. I know you said for him it's going to take time. A lot of these guys it's going to take some time, but the key veteran guys, Marchand has known, because he was a Cassidy carryover, so he knows the system like the back of his hand. It was with Gale, I think it was on Friday, when we were talking about the alternate cast with Razor and Bergeron, and when they're watching the game, they're sitting there and Bergeron's making comments about, why are they doing this? That's not the system. They're doing a different system.
Exactly. I will say Pavel Zach has been really, really good. Elias Lindholm is getting there. Brazeau is Brazeau. The fourth line is the fourth line. It's just easier for me to tell you who I'm underwhelmed by, and that's Trent Frederick, David Pastrnak, Morgan Geekie, Charlie Coyle, to a lesser extent, Charlie McAvoy. I'm still underwhelmed by them, even 2 games into this change.
Yeah. 2-game sample versus the 20-game sample we had before that. But, it'll be interesting.
The 2 games is more of the 20 games.
Yeah. I mean, the
So it's
good news
not
is at
2,
least in
it's
these ones.
22.
Yeah. I mean, this is the first time they've had back-to-back wins since the back-to-back shutouts back earlier in the month. And it's only the third time this season where they've had back-to-back wins. So, yeah, they used to, what was it? Both last year and the year before, they barely lost 2 games in a row. And this year, they've already lost 3 games in a row and 2 games in a row twice. It's just been so sporadic.
Yep. But I just want to see continued improvement. Now, Vancouver is supposed to be a tough test, but they're missing some key guys.
Yeah.
So how tough is it going to be?
It should be, especially since you're home, it should be, I don't want to say an easy game, but you should be able to string together 3 in a row here, at least.
Yeah, you're not going against the Vancouver roster you would see if they're fully healthy.
No. I will say you're going to go against a motivated Jake DeBrusk. He's going to want to shove it in your face.
Yeah, but I'd be more worried if it was a playoff game with Jake DeBrusk.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it just, I mean, they don't have JT Miller right now. They don't have Thatcher Demko right now. 2 key pieces of their roster are right there. I'm not sure if anybody else is injured. Let me check, but I'm pretty sure those are the 2 main guys. Oh, Forbort's out and Brock Besser is out.
Yeah.
Or at least he was out. Yeah, he's listed with an upper body, so he might end up missing that game as well. So they're definitely an undermanned team right now. You should be able to get the W at home. And let's face it, you should be able to close out this month with 5 straight wins. The Islanders, good team, but they've got some injuries as well. They're being inconsistent. Pellick, Declare, Barzal, Riley, they're all out. And then Pittsburgh is just terrible. You should be able to win 2 out of those 3 games minimum.
Here's my issue with easy games is sometimes it becomes so easy that you really don't have to work hard. And that's the thing. It's like I've been saying, what I want to see them continually work on the things they need to work on. For example, the penalty kill. If you're going up against a team who just can't score on the power play, is your PK really getting challenged? No.
No, they're not. But at the same time, to see this penalty kill string together some PKs in a row, like
Right,
they were giving up bad power play goals recently. So for them to start to string it together is a good sign.
They're PKs they should be killing anyway, Chris.
They should be, yeah, but they weren't before.
What I'm saying is what I've said all along. I'm not basing anything on these first 9 games. I'm not. I just want to see improvement.
Are you seeing improvement?
Through 2 games, yeah, but still a long way to go.
Still but you can only go off of what you
still
did, what
a
you
long,
got.
Still a long way to go, and you're not going to do it against some of the competition you have to face in the next few games. That's why I stress, let's not go crazy over what happens over the next 9 games.
I'm not going crazy. I'm just trying to say that it's better than it's been, and the schedule, the opponents, you should be able to keep it going. You should be able to build on it and keep yourself in the race. Right now, you're the second wild card team, just above Tampa. That should be keeping them motivated right there. Stay in the playoff hunt. Buffalo's jumped ahead of them too. Like, do you really want to lose a division spot to Buffalo?
No, but I don't know how else to explain it. English is my third language. I'm not basing a game against the Islanders where they should kill 10 out of 10 penalties against them with ease as coming out and saying the PK has improved. That's all I'm saying.
I get it. I do.
Okay, if we were speaking Italian or French, I may be able to explain it better. Seriously, English is my third language, but that's all I'm trying to say.
I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you on it. The only point I'm trying to make is, yes, I agree. They should go 10 for 10 on the PK. But all 20 games, they weren't doing that. They were going 3 for 10. That's how bad they were. So if they end up going 10 for 10, yes, that's a little bit of an improvement.
Well,
but we don't know. Continue to see it.
We don't know if it's an improvement because it's the Islanders. That's what I'm saying.
That's a fair point.
Do it to the Oilers. Do it again to the Red Wings. Do it to the Leafs.
Really? You'd consider the Red Wings? I mean, yeah, they have a good power play, but they're not a good team.
The Red Wings were Chris, we were specifically talking the PK. Okay, the Red Wings have a top 5 power play in the league. Yes, I would consider going 3 for 3 against them a good night on the PK.
Okay. I agree. The Oilers are a much better test. I'm glad we don't have to see Florida for a little while. I'm just glad they're in the playoff race right now. Looks like you might be getting confirmation on your theory or some message of the like.
No, confirmation for a surprise show we're doing Thursday night.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. So that's confirmed now, huh?
Yeah.
Perfect. I will have that link out later tonight. People are going to want to tune in for that. We got back-to-back games on Tuesday, Wednesday, and another show on Thursday. So getting all the extra bonus content.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
I got to say, speaking of which, that episode Friday, I think I've gotten 13, 14 messages that people were loving having Gail on. We got to have her on again.
Mm-hmm.
That was awesome. She was fantastic. Although I'm looking forward to tonight's guest. Not to undermine that. He should hopefully be on in about 15 minutes.
I got a message saying not to drink on the show again. Actually, I got a couple of them. No, not from you, but it is what it is.
It was a celebratory night for you, so we'll let it slide. But, a couple more weeks, we all might want to be celebrating with some strung together wins here. So...
yeah, just so everybody knows, we are doing a show on Thursday.
Hey, we got one tomorrow, too. Tomorrow we're doing the prospects. We should hopefully finally be able to get back to the prospects.
For those that are wondering, we are doing a show on Thursday, and I had so many people tell me to get Craig Eagles back on the show. And he just confirmed he's available Thursday at 6:30. So he will be on the show Thursday. And yes, we have the prospect show tomorrow night at 6:30 right here, right.
Same channel.
What is it?
Same time.
X, YouTube. Yeah.
Same channel. Click the follow button. Click the subscribe button. You know what to do. 6:30, we'll be here. We got some prospects to talk about. Providence is going to be interesting. They won their game yesterday too, so that'll be a good conversation to have. And hey, did you catch the last minute goal by Jelvik today?
Yep.
So yeah, for UMass. It wasn't the tying goal. It was a 3-2 goal.
Loch Mellis.
I was going to say Jelvik. Why did I say Jelvik?
Today.
It was Loch Mellis. Sorry.
He assisted on it.
Oh, yeah. They ended up giving the other guy the goal. But
yeah.
It was like 50. Their sticks were right next to each other. Either one could have tapped it in.
I do have a yes, this, that, and the other thing to talk about.
Go for it.
So, whenever possible, I'm watching the Bruins. I always try to catch the other team's speed. Not because I don't like the Bruins, but I like to get an impartial take on what they're thinking. And Mickey Redmond, who does the color for the Red Wings, very, very good. I loved him as a hockey player. Yes, I'm old enough to have watched Mickey Redmond play hockey, folks. So he had a lot of good things to say about Justin Brazeau. Um, but one thing is their play by play announcer, I forget his name, kept referring to Brazeau. Well, I shouldn't say kept referring to him as, but referred to him as a couple of times a former Leafs prospect or former Leafs property. Justin Brazeau was never a Toronto Maple Leaf prospect or property. He had signed an American Hockey League deal. The Leafs had no claim to him. So he was never Maple Leafs property or prospect. I just wanted to throw that out there under the this, that, and the other thing.
So he was Toronto Marlies property.
Right. Was never in Maple Leafs.
I get where he's coming from, but yes, technically he's not right, and it does put some misinformation out there. It's a detail that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that, again, as we say, we are just going to mention the facts. We're going to talk about the facts here. Fact of the matter is, any NHL team could have signed him, and well, Toronto Maple Leafs missed out on him.
Yeah.
Think they're kicking themselves on that one yet?
I don't know. You would think so, but
I was going to say they're the ones that are in first place right now. So,
are comments not working?
I don't know. I'm going to pull it up on YouTube real quick and see if we're getting any over there.
Because I just tried to post one in there and it won't.
Well, let's take a quick peek here. If anybody's been throwing comments on, bear with me. I'm going to try to pull some up here. There we go. Let's see. Yeah, for some reason they're not popping up on here. That's weird. But we do have some. So let me run through them here. These are just the ones on YouTube. I can't see the other ones at the moment. Let's see. There's some small talk. Not going to read all those ones. Kevin wanted to know where his cookies are, of course, because he needs the food.
They're oatmeal raisin, Kevin. You won't like them.
Let's see. Matrix says Monty didn't even want to be a Bruin. He threw in the towel before camp even ended. I don't know. Again, as Dom mentioned, there's no guarantee that they were going to let him out of the contract, but at the same time, it just doesn't. It didn't feel right anymore. Let's see. Wally mentioned they gave up more shorties than PKs for a week and a half. Karen is watching again. Shout out to Karen. I actually got a Winter Classic hat from her a few years ago. So she's one of the OG What's Bruin viewers. So shout out to Karen. Let's see here. Let's see. I like the D not collapsing between the circles. More shots instead of being quote unquote cute. So far, so good. Another comment by Wally. Defense was great. The offense wasn't as bad as the score shows. Let's see. Trying to see if there's a few other questions in here, but I will keep this up here. Much cleaner game for them, and the shot generation seems to be improved so far. There's no such thing as an easy hockey game. Let's see. Already getting some love for when Craig comes on Thursday. That's always good. And Boston G24 with a question. Do we think we see Poitras again this season or even have him get traded at the upcoming deadline? What do you think this year's projection is for Matthew Poitras?
It depends on how things go. It's so hard to predict. If a couple of centermen go down, yeah, I could see him back up. If not, I think the roster that we see now, minus Mark McLaughlin, is and minus Jordan Osterley when Lindholm comes back, is the roster that we're going to see.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, barring a centerman going down, that would make sense to have him called back up because you want. I think the whole purpose, one of the purposes in sending him down, was to continue to develop him as a centerman. Just the
As
fact
for,
that
as
he had
for the trades, they're 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 not trading their higher end prospects. They're not.
not unless someone like a big name becomes available with term, it just doesn't make any sense. And right now the standings are just too close. I don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening because so I mean, if you pull up the standings, I just had them. I'll pull them back up. Especially if you factor in the wild card, like first place in the Atlantic, 20 or third place in the Atlantic, 23 points, 27 in the Metro. And then you've got at 25 the Rangers, 23 the Bruins, and then Tampa, Islanders, Blue Jackets, Philly are all within 3 points of that. And then Detroit and Pittsburgh have 18 points, so they're 3 games out. Everybody has, I mean, I guess you could even make the case that Ottawa with 17 points is in it. Montreal has 16. So the East is really tight. And you go over to the West and it's just as tight. Chicago is in last place, 16 points. 3-4 game run, and they're right back into it. Yeah, you need Edmonton to lose some games, so it's not likely, but it's not impossible. I don't
No,
see I honestly don't see a very active trade deadline, to be honest with you.
not based on the way standings are going right now, but anything can change between now and March.
Let's see. I could see Merkulov being added in a deal at the trade deadline. Honestly, I'm not so sure. I feel like Merkulov will probably get another call up this year. They'll see kind of where he's at. And I really feel like with Merkulov, if they're not going to re-sign him, he's just going to want to go back to Russia. What do you think?
They have decisions to make on a number of guys. McLaughlin could be a Group 6 UFA at the end of the year. Probably a reason why he got a call up. Lysel's going to get a chance eventually this year because they need to know what's there. Merkulov, he will get another shot. It's too hard to say I don't want to guess at what's going to happen at the end of the season because we're still in November. We've got months of hockey ahead of us to determine what's going to happen to these players or the prospects going forward.
Yeah, a question coming in from Rob. Why are they not playing McLaughlin this year? He still needs work, but has a lot of potential. He looks like he wants it. Again, we talked a little bit about him. He's got the 5 goals in his last 5 games in Providence. They gave him the call-up. This call-up, like you said, they needed an extra forward. I said on Friday's show I didn't see him getting into the lineup. I thought they would go back to Johnson. I'd like to see them go back to Frederick Geeky Coyle on the third line and move Johnson up to the top line left wing. I just don't know if he's quite there physically yet. Johnson, that is.
I don't know. All we can do is try it. It may just be what Pasternak needs.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see. I naturally think this roster is better with Poitras on it, but the only benefit is him forming chemistry with Lysell. They instantly clicked this weekend, and that second line with Max Jones looked great. We'll be talking more about that line tomorrow, but I do like that line together down in Providence.
Yeah, it's again, it's a small sample size.
Yeah.
It really is.
Checking to see if there is anything else that isn't just small talk on here. But yeah, again, thank you guys for bearing with us on the chat. I will see if I can get some comments pulled up from the Twitter side. Those are all from the YouTube side. This is what makes the YouTube side a bit better, though. The comments work in multiple ways. So even when they're not working right through here, we're able to get them another way. So I recommend checking us out on the YouTube side. But let's see, Dom. Hopefully, our guest pops in very shortly. But did you have any other major thoughts that you wanted to start kind of before we try to transition a little bit into going forward here?
Yeah, it
Since
was
that's
nice
what we're
to
getting
see.
some questions.
Yeah, it was nice to see Jeremy Swayman have a good game. He needed that. Absolutely needed that.
What did you think of the decision to start him?
I didn't like it, but I understood it. I just think when a goalie comes in and wins you a hockey game and gets a shutout, that he's earned the next start. That's my own personal belief. There's a lot of NHL coaches that would tell you the same thing, but I can understand the reason for going with Swayman and not complain about it.
Now, because Sacco basically his reasoning behind it was he's our starting goaltender. We want to get him back out there. We want to have him kind of break the rut that he had been in. Thoughts on that reasoning? I mean, he's not
Well, that's
wrong.
what I mean. I can understand it.
So, I mean, a lot of it comes down to the communication. And let's see, is Monty the big elephant in the room? Didn't take Bruins offer, players not responding. Monty gone with a 5-year deal 5 days later. Yeah, was he the driving force kind of behind what was lagging here? I mean, it certainly seems like it. That's kind of where we started. But yeah, I mean, going forward, I know you said, and we'll continue to highlight small sample size, but we got to keep seeing what we've seen in these two games. That's the crucial part. Continual improvement, more shots on goal, and the power play continuing to. It'd be nice if it could keep getting a goal a game.
Yeah, it would, because it looks like they're going to need it for a few games.
And hopefully they're able to get. I mean, Swayman looked real good again. I can't say he looked back to his old self. How do you think the firing affected him as a goalie? Because Korpisalo was asked about it, and he just kind of gave that doesn't have much of an effect on me. I go out and try to stop the puck kind of answer.
I don't think it does either with Swayman, because they work with Bob Sense. They don't work with Jim Montgomery. They sit in on the PK meetings. They sit in on the power play meetings because obviously they need to know what's going on, right? But other than that, it is what it is. They yeah.
Our guest is here.
Oh, awesome!
Are you ready for me to bring him on?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Bruins fans know him. Great hockey guy here in the area. It is the one, the only Evan Marinovsky. Evan, thank you so much for jumping on. How are you tonight?
I am happy to finally be with you guys.
Thank you.
Evan Marinovsky. It's
here.
about friggin' time, man. About time.
And I'm here now, so there you go.
Good,
up,
because
what's up, Chris?
I want to put you to the task right away and ending all this conspiracy theories that are going on.
Oh, I'll probably start some before we're done.
Oh no,
that's
no,
okay.
No. You'll
that wouldn't.
Well,
that
start some new ones.
I know we do need to start some new ones.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you've heard of these ones, but the first one is that Joe Sacco kept things from Jim Montgomery when it comes to strategy, hoping that Montgomery would lose his job and he would get the head coaching job. Now, we all know head coaching doesn't work that way. They have the final say. But your thoughts on that one?
Is that going around? I actually have not seen that one.
Oh,
I haven't heard
man, I
that
got
one
to send
either.
it to you then. Yeah, it's going around.
Oh,
Do I think? No, I don't. I think it's interesting though. Like obviously, the last 2 games they've played, and we'll probably get into this, better defensively, more layers, all that stuff. So I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know why Montgomery never kind of switched, or maybe he did try to, and they didn't do it well enough. But I mean, they have looked a little bit different over the last 2 games. So, but hiding things, that would be good. That'd be diabolical by Joe Sacco. He was hiding stuff. Like, we're gonna make the power. He's like going to Chris Kelly. He's like, we're gonna make the power play, make it worse. So we get him out of. Then when I take over the power, we're gonna have guys be less stationary. We're gonna be better. I love that theory. I like that theory.
Yeah, it's like I can't believe I saw that one. Do you want to go next, Chris? Because I got another.
I was just gonna say I hadn't heard that one, but it just doesn't surprise me. Like it's hilarious. And Evan, you and I talked about other theories at camp. It just the things that some fans come up with that grab the snow as they roll down the hill is just mind-boggling sometimes. Dom, what's the next one you got for us?
Well, we kind of touched on it earlier, but the conspiracy theory that Montgomery purposely screwed things up to get out and get the St. Louis job. Now, my understanding, and I'm waiting for confirmation from somebody that would know, is that St. Louis couldn't even talk to Montgomery, let alone hire him without permission from the Bruins, because he's still tracked. So Montgomery would have to know that the Bruins would let him go in order to force his way out like that. Your thoughts on that one, Evan?
Well, I was just pulling up a tweet because I think Ty Anderson tweeted this today. Bruins did, in fact, make multiple pitches to Montgomery on a contract extension before firing him. They were all turned down, and feeling was they weren't close. My own thought there is I don't think they were ever going to go 5 years. This theory, do I think he directly did it? No. But, I think it was Pierre LeBrun. No, it was Elliot Friedman who wrote the other day that, Montgomery might have had questions about Boston before Boston had questions about him. Now, I think Boston's had questions about him for a long time. But I do think it's interesting. I mean, he's from St. Louis. He was with them prior to this job.
Actually, his wife is.
Yes.
He's from Montreal. He's from Montreal.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say, he's not from St. Louis. Thank you for catching that. But that's the thing. I think, directly doing that, no. But the fact that he's now the head coach in St. Louis and he just signed a 5-year deal, which is probably what he wanted from the Bruins. And I believe, John, they have a house there too, I think.
Yeah, they still own it, and they go there in the off season. Yeah.
So again, that's a theory that might be a little more realistic, but to tank a team, I also think and I think you guys might have said this leading up to when he was fired. It was they have to either extend him or fire him. You can't just keep doing this. Either give him long-term security here and say we're behind you, or just let him go. And I think everyone was on board with letting him go. I don't think that was a big surprise to anybody. But I like that. That's another good theory that he was playing chess, get himself, and he got himself to St. Louis. So that theory worked.
Well, I think it was Elliot Friedman that said that the Bruins offered him $3 million and Montgomery turned it down. $3 million for a top coach is a serious underpay. If that's all the Bruins offered, that's a serious underpay.
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of hits another thing is is he a guy? Is he a top end coach in the league? And to me, before coming on, I was to me, the top end coaches in hockey are Cooper, Maurice, Cassidy, Berube, maybe not. He has a cup, obviously.
I think this year in Toronto will put him on that echelon if he can get them a deep playoff run.
I completely agree. And so it's like those four, and Bednar and Colorado would be another. So like you have
Yeah.
5. I don't think Montgomery does not have the playoff success so far to justify that. He's been a great regular season coach, and he's definitely better than a Drew Bannister or, a lot of the, coaches around the league. To me, I look at Montgomery as sort of, and I always looked at him like this, as sort of a high end, just another coach. And to me, like, that's why, I was always kind of, and I think they were too, just kind of like, I don't know if this is the guy, and he didn't really answer those questions last postseason
Yeah.
because, they went up on Toronto and then they almost blew it. And then, they pull it out at the end. And then, I mean, I remember Cam and Don being really upset that they didn't take it to a 7th game against Florida last year. And that Florida team was way better than them. So I'm not like, I don't put that on Montgomery, but the $3 million, I agree with you. I'm not surprised Montgomery turned it down, but I also am not surprised the Bruins offered that in terms of, hey, you're a solid coach, but you're not quite like top tier,
Yeah, and I know Dom and I have talked about it before. 2 years ago, he should have been fired for, like the gaffe in the playoffs, and then he goes out and has another gaffe in the playoffs. And I mean, I can't really blame them for not giving him security. And real quick, we do have a question here that whether or not Montgomery's contract status leaked into the locker room and if that had anything to do with it. But everybody knew he was waiting on a new contract coming into this season. But David also asked the question: did the Bruins show their hand when they promoted Sacco from assistant coach to associate coach? And I think everybody's ears kind of perked up at that when that happened.
Yeah, and I also think ears perked up when they brought back Jay Leach, because Jay Leach interviewed for Montgomery's job a couple of years ago, and he's been a head coach anytime. A Bleacher Report or The Athletic does a kind of a list of, X potential candidates for open job. Jay Leach is usually always a name on that list. So, that's another one, too. I actually forgot. I'd forgotten about the Sacco thing up until, they obviously promoted Sacco because the Leach thing was to me, so big. And that was sort of what happened with Cassidy or what happened with Julian, where they promoted Bruce from Providence. And he comes up and he's an assistant, and it's like, oh, it seems like they have the head coach in waiting, there. And by then, 10 years in, I mean, there'd been 10 different times people thought Claude was getting canned. It was a lot. And I think Montgomery, it's the same thing. Like Montgomery, after that first year, there were questions. And then during last year, it was like, okay, they lose game 7 against the Leafs. He's gone the next day. And even this month, the last month, how many games? Carolina, Dallas. There've been so many games where it's like, oh, it's happening after this game. There's no way he makes it past this. But you're right. The Sacco thing was big becoming an associate.
As soon as the game clock hit 0 against the Blue Jackets, I know I texted Kevin, and I'm pretty sure I texted you, Dom, and I'm just like, there's no way he survives this one now. He just can't. It just.
I never thought that Leach would get the job. Not once Sacco got the promotion. But I do want to ask you, Evan, because I know you do a lot with college hockey. Sweeney said that he's not going to go out and do a full head coaching search now. So Sacco will get the opportunity to try to earn it full time. But he may look in at bringing in an assistant. Is there a guy in the college ranks that you feel that can come in right now, learn under Sacco about the pro game, yet still help this team? I'm just wondering. I don't think that anybody would be openly available at the end of November, but is there somebody that you think we should keep an eye on?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because it's tough. You hit on it with it being November. So college teams are obviously in full swing, and that's a hard to pull them away. And and the reality, obviously, from what I know, the money as an assistant coach in the NHL would pay you a lot more than college. So I don't think, if they went to a college guy in the area and said, hey, we're going to give you a big pay increase, they would jump ship probably without issue. I mean, it's interesting. A name that's thrown around as for head coach too is like Jay Pandolfo with BU,
Yeah.
and because obviously he was a former assistant for the Bruins years ago, and it's interesting because I always run into this with college coaches, and you see it like, and it's relevant with Montgomery. Like, Montgomery had a really good, stable job in Denver, and could have had a job for life there, but guys are competitive and wanted to prove it in the NHL, and had Dallas, and then obviously has Boston. Now he has St. Louis, but like since 2018, that's Dallas, St. Louis, Boston, St. Louis, 4 different locations, moving your family around to those different places. Whereas it could have been in Denver for that entire time, and
Yeah.
when you have kids and stuff and all that, like those college head coaching gigs are jobs you don't let go of. You get a lot of perks, not just payment wise, but you get different perks through the school, and your kids can go to that school too. So like, there's all that. But Pandolfo's an interesting one. I don't think he leaves BU.
You don't think
I don't.
so?
I don't. I don't. He has a son who's 15, who's coming up, who's really good, and the thought obviously is that he's going to end up at BU. I would have a tough time thinking Jay would leave prior to that. Like, my guess is that he wants. It's just a guess. I don't know that for
Yeah.
fact, but like my guess is that he would want to see his kid come up. Maybe that isn't a big thing for him, and he does want to jump back into the NHL ranks. Like, people
He'll
can be
jump
weird
into
about
the
those jump ins.
NHL ranks when he goes to BC instead.
Yeah, that's right. So I go to BC and Jay's like, I'm done. There's no point to this.
Yeah.
Jay's an interesting one. Jay is an interesting one. I don't see him. I don't see him leaving though for an assistant job with the Bruins. I could see him leaving if the head coaching job popped up like that. I could see, but
Yeah.
and another thing you have to think about is travel too. And I know you guys know this, but like you travel as a Hockey East coach. Like, you're home most of the time. Like,
Every night, pretty
yeah,
much. Yeah.
Right?
yeah. Like, aside from Vermont and Maine, like you're home in your own bed after almost every game. So like, there is that. But Nate Lehman's a name that gets thrown around a lot. He wouldn't be an assistant. That would be more of a head coach. I'm trying to think more for you guys, like assistant college people that would make sense as NHL assistants. Because I don't think any college head coach is leaving for an assistant job in the NHL. Like, I
Okay.
think they've sort of got it made in college. But there are definitely a lot of good assistants in college around Boston that would make sense. I'm trying to think of NHL background ones. I mean, there's a lot of great, like, Joel Beal at Providence is phenomenal. You want to know a good one? Like, Ron Ralston at Providence is a great one, right? Ron Ralston was the head coach in Buffalo for a little bit, has a very extensive background in the National Development Program. By the way, this is not informed, as you can tell. This is completely off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But, like, Ron Ralston would be someone that would make sense. Ron's the associate head coach at Providence. John, by your question, like, that would be someone that I think you'd be interested in. It's a veteran. He's not a younger guy. He's a vet. Would be someone that has the NHL experience. Like, if you really wanted to
Right.
bring in a guy on the staff with experience and everything, and he lives in the area, like, that would be someone that you would look at. You could go younger, like BU. Kim Brandvold's at BU as an assistant. That's an interesting name. Joe Pereira. You got
Brandvold worked for the Bruins, did he not?
He did. Kim was with the Bruins
Yeah.
and went to BU with Jay.
Okay.
So that could be one. I mean, that could be an interesting one. He's more of a skills guy with BU, and he's very into that end of it. So, but yeah, I mean, BC's got Ayers and Buckley, and so I think it'd be interesting, like, if they did go after someone young, to have them kind of learn on that staff. My guess though would be that they wouldn't. Solely because, like, Leach is relatively young, Kelly's relatively young as a coach. Like, I would think you'd more want to bring in a veteran guy.
A
That's kind of
veteran.
why I went with Ross.
That's what I
Yeah.
was thinking when I heard those comments. But I'm trying to think of who out there would be, like, more or less a consultant role as opposed to an actual coaching role.
It's fair.
And
Yeah.
that, someone who could act the way Claude would for Jim Montgomery in St. Louis, to use them as an example. Like, who would be out there for that kind of,
I
position?
wanted Dale Hunter, Evan. So that's what
That's
I
a great
know.
one.
That's
a great
who
one.
I
would
wanted.
think, right. Like, I don't know if it would be a college person in the area. Like, that they're kind of locked in. Like, I would
That's
assume
what I
it would
thought.
be someone. Like I would assume it would be someone in the AHL ranks, Providence guy. Like, you know, do you bring up like Muj? Like, do you bring up Mujanel? I can't imagine they would pull the head coach from Providence because I feel like that creates more instability. Maybe something you do in the off season. But like that would be my thing. Do you promote him? Do you promote like a Whitfield? I don't know. You also the other thing is they have John McClain. John McClain a couple of years ago was an assistant coach with the Bruins. He was upstairs, I believe, for
Yes,
most games, and he's on
you're
staff
right.
still as a skills guy. So you have him too. That's why I was kind of wondering if they would bring him back into the fold. But like he's kicking around.
Yeah, because he like you said, he got moved in the skills department.
And that's his thing.
I wonder if they're looking at someone or they're considering someone who has yet to be fired too, because there are other coaches who are under fire. Like, I mean, imagine if they went out and they got Andrew Burnett if the Predators fired him.
100%. Lalonde in Denver, in Detroit, like that's another one. Like those guys that are on the hot seat. It's unfortunate the way that head coaching goes in the NHL. Like, Drew Bannister had 22 games in St. Louis. Like that's why it goes back to what I said about college coaches. Like, you've like Nate Lehman's one that's always brought up. He's always one of the guys that's brought up for head coaching jobs in the NHL whenever they come up. And like he's got it made at Providence. He can be at Providence forever if he wants to be. Greg Carvel at UMass can be there forever. Jay Pandolfo at BU can be there for the next 30 years. And, his contract keep going up and all that. Like, how do you leave that? I always look at I know that the money's way better in the NHL, but the stability, the life, like, I don't know. I always wonder why. I may get why coaches leave the NHL, but
free education for your kids is worth.
It's nice.
Matrix in the comments mentions Mike Sullivan.
Mike Sullivan's another. Yeah, he can coach his his son-in-law. That'd be great.
Cole Julian in St. Louis. I don't see him in Montgomery. It's
an interesting duo.
Let's
see. It's going to be interesting.
Interesting. Craig Berube, who won in St. Louis, went to bat for Monty right after Boston let him go. Claimed he did a great job for 2 years in Dallas. Yeah, I don't think this was a popular decision based on who Monty is as a person. And I think that goes across the board. No one was rooting for Monty to fail and get fired. It was just a matter of, this team needs a change. And this is where the chain is kind of weakening. Real quick, also, Swede Chef in the comments mentions Joe Quenneville. Which is a name that's floated out there. I'm not a fan of it, but I'm not, I mean, if he's a consultant,
yeah, I think it's interesting though. Like they had the Mitchell Miller thing 2 years ago. I can't imagine them. Like there's other coaches out there. There's other older veteran guys that are available, Gallant, and like I can't imagine they would enter back into that PR disaster. Like
I don't think so either.
Bruce Boudreau, another one. Yes, that could work too. Yeah, Quenneville. I've heard that name floated out. It's been around on Twitter a lot. So, but I'd rather stay away. Like, don't.
I wonder if they threw that little tidbit out there if we might hire another coach because they know the way names get thrown out there around here, and they can kind of gauge the reaction to some of them, like a Joel Quenneville. And if there's not a lot of negative reaction, then they might look into it.
Oh, we'll do it.
You know what I mean?
Didn't they kind of do that with David Quinn when Cassidy was fired? I remember for a couple of days, like Quinn was the favorite, if memory serves.
I think.
And people were pissed, and then they didn't hire David Quinn. Not that was the reason, but to your point,
I wouldn't put it past them to do that. Test the waters, throw a name out there. I guess the real question is, what name did Fluto send out?
I think with
hilarious.
We're getting comments on Twitter now. They're coming
Pierre
through
Maguire.
Finally. Pierre Maguire, Mike Milbury.
So I want to move now on to the on-ice stuff now that we've had a couple of games, Evan. So obviously you mentioned the defense and the zone coverage being an improvement, albeit just 2 games. What are the biggest differences you see in the last couple of games? besides the
Well, I think
goaltending.
that's a big one. I think overall compete, like they are winning puck battles, they are finishing hits, and it sounds cliche, and it's like, oh, doesn't everybody compete? But I mean, you guys saw it for the first 20 games. Like there were
Oh,
so many plays where it was like, what are they doing? Like what they look
yeah.
like they want to get their coach fired. Like they're in on the chess match to get Montgomery to St.
That was
Louis.
another theory. I heard that
Yeah,
one.
they're in on it. They're in on it too. So I think compete, and then I think when you up that compete, you have your center who's in a better position to create that layer, to give some support to the D who's on the main puck carrier in their corner, or the defender at the top with a wing on them. So like, I think just kind of those layers, and that kind of comes from the compete. Defending the net front better. And again, you mentioned like it's only been 2 games. And I think another thing, like people are going to say, oh, it's just Utah and Detroit. And they've got a lot of easy games coming up. But like the the Bruins are on par with all these teams now. And to prove that they are
Right.
more than this, they need to win these games. It can't just be, oh, they won 5 in a row, but it's against crappy opponents. Like they need a stretch where, you're kind of getting some easier opponents. You have the Penguins, the Black Friday game, you have the Islanders the game before. So like it's okay that they're playing easier teams. So it's the compete, it's the defense. Offensively, I haven't seen enough of a difference other than, and this is a good thing, they're getting more shots on net. There seems to
Hmm.
be more of a urgency there. Hasn't been with David Pastrnak. There were some chances he passed up Saturday against Detroit that I was like, like the pass. I think it was to Elias Lindholm in front, or maybe it was Lindholm who passed one initially, and I'm mixing them up. But there were a couple with Pastrnak where it's like, like shoot the puck, like you're right there, just get a shot off, and there was another that he passed it. So there needs to be a little more offensively. But if they're just going to be a stingy team defensively, which is what they've been the last 2 games, I mean it's a 1-0 and a 2-1 win. Like
Yeah.
if that's what they're going to be, then like you handle that for now until the offense sorts itself out, and that is a mix for winning hockey. Another thing I'll add: they're breaking the puck out simpler, which is nice. They're not
Yes.
looking to dink around with it. Like you see more guys, and again, it's ugly hockey, but you see more guys when nothing's open, chip it off the glass, get it out. Especially the last 5 minutes of that game against Utah, and even late against Detroit on Saturday, where they're defending a lead. Just kind of being okay with, hey, as long as the puck's out of our zone, we can live with that because they are a little bit of a broken team right now. So you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
always rely on those crisp tape to tape passes getting out of the zone and area passes and stuff. Sometimes you do just have to chip it up off the glass. And is it fun to watch? No, it isn't. But it is. You can win with that, and they've done it the last 2 games.
Yeah, I will say that based on the last 2 games and the change in philosophy, the change in transition, especially the transition game, I can't wait to see Hampus come back. He was playing so well, and he's a transitional type defenseman. I want to see him thrive in this system.
I agree. And it's a shame he went down when he did, because he's gotten a lot of crap, and rightfully so. Last year wasn't quite up to par with that 22-23 season when he was like third in the Norris, and the postseason he's kind of been iffy. I know he had that goal last year against Toronto, and you're right. Like he just makes simple puck plays, and I think that's the thing that sort of works with him. And he knows when to shoot at the point. He's good at getting
Yeah.
to shooting lanes. Um, and that's why like he might be their best power play one quarterback that they have. Like Low Rise still young, still kind of breaking him in. McAvoy, the power play is completely sputtered under him. So like Lindholm to me is the interesting one. And of course the game that they have that happen, that they move him back up, he gets hurt.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, Chris. I think he's going to be someone that benefits from this for sure, and I think he'll spark some more 5-on-5 offense too.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Exactly.
JFM is asking, how hurt is Pastrnak? Do we know if he's battling something?
I mean, he was in the off season. Like Fluto, I was reading Fluto the other day, and Fluto had that, and he was someone that had something. I think he got hurt. It was a tournament. I'm completely blanking on what it was, but he got hurt at it.
The world championships.
Yes, the World Championships.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's lingering. Like, I don't know. I mean, again, I think it also comes down to this is the second straight year. Pastrnak's kind of, I don't want to say on his own, but you don't have with you or Bergeron and Marchand. Like, it's, it was Lindholm and that didn't work. And it was Sacco now in the middle. And Zaka's fine, but, you have like Geeky on the other side. And so it's very much up to Pastrnak to be the driver of that line, to be the main guy producing. And, you're the one producing open looks. This is one thing we talked about last year was like, he's a phenomenal playmaker. He's underrated at it. And, that hasn't been there this year. And he needed to adapt to it last year, and he did. He just that hasn't really translated to this year that much.
Mike mentioning, or Sully mentioning that Lindholm could be the X factor on the power play. That's one of the reasons why I can't wait for him to get back, because that one game it looked better, and then down he went. So, and then a couple other comments about something just seems off with Pasta. It's he's hesitating. I wonder, like you said, it's his first year without Krejci, first year without Bergeron. They almost like they tried to square peg round hole Elias Lindholm between him and Sacco. And then as soon as Sacco went back to the center, he relaxed a little bit more and felt right at home again. And I wonder how much of that is just him kind of won the system where he's thinking make a play versus shoot the puck. And now it's kind of reverting back to what is his strength of shooting.
Yes. I also know that it didn't work out the first couple games, but I do want to see Lindholm back with Pastrnak. I want to now that you have a new head coach, you're over a month into the season. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing that trying to put those two back together, because that was a big reason you signed Elias Lindholm, right? Like, he's great on faceoffs, two-way guy, Bergeron light, all this stuff. Also a guy that could play with Pastrnak and be a legit center or close to a legitimate number one center. And I know, what was it like? They had him there for 7, 8, 9 games. I would still be open to seeing that again, because Lindholm's here for a long time. Pastrnak's here for a long time.
Yeah.
That can't just be a tiny sample size. You're going to have to see more of this. I think there's a lot of pressure on Pastrnak, and you look internally, and it's like, okay, who can be Pasternak's guy down the middle? Is Sacco the long-term fit there? And we said this all last year, good guy when you need him there, but if you can have him on the wing, I like Sacco down the middle. It's just is he a number one center? Probably not. But then you also look internally, who's the prospect that's going to be a number one center? Dean Latorno? That's 5-6 years away. Is it Merkulov? Could Merkulov have that high offensive upside that works with Pastrnak? That's hard to bank on. That's hard to bet on. So that's the other thing, is Lindholm. That's the answer at some point.
Everyone's going to come back to screaming Matthew Potter's name.
That's the other one.
So,
too. Yeah.
In that situation, Evan, are you moving Sacco to left wing, or are you moving him to center with Marchand?
It's an interesting question. I do like Sacco down the middle with Pastrnak. It's not bad. But in that case with Lindholm, I would be open to trying that again, because you would get that Sacco Pastrnak, connection on the same line still.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'd have Coyle up on that second line. Yeah, I'd probably, if you're going to try Lindholm again down the middle, I say go back to what the plan was coming into the year. Restart it. You're a new team, so to speak, right now. You have a new head coach. You're 2-0. I would go with Sacco shot back on the left side, put Lindholm back in the middle, and try that out. And then that second line would be Marchand, Coyle, and Brazeau. And you try that, and you let that cook. And then your third line, Patra's still in Providence, so you've got Frederick. You try to, that's a whole nother thing. Geeky, whole nother thing. So, and is it McLaughlin? Is it
Johnson?
You bring Patra back up, Johnson, another one. So, but yeah, I would back on the left side and try that out.
So you mentioned Frederick. Obviously, not having as good a year as he had last year. You could say that about any number of guys on the roster.
It's a lot of guys.
Yeah.
It's many. I think the whole roster almost.
But UFA coming up at the end of the year. I think it was Elliot Friedman again that suggested there's interest in him. What do you do with him come trade deadline, whether you're in a playoff spot or not?
This is where like I worry that they're so focused on just getting in the playoffs that they sort of go, well, it's okay if he leaves us in the offseason. We have a shot at the cup. And I think anyone who has watched this team through 22 games now can safely say, like, based off what they've shown us, they could move into, cup contenders again. I'm not saying that they won't, but like based off of this, I mean, this is a team that looks like a one round and done. And is that worth it? So to me, like Frederick is the perfect example of someone that you don't let walk out the door for nothing. My guess is, given his play style, given the way the league is, given what the potential is with him and what he's shown at times, my guess is there's a team that's going to come around and be like, we want that guy on our roster. We're going to give him, I don't know, 4.5, 5 million. I'm not great at projecting these things, but like somewhere in that
Yeah.
range. Like, do you want to pay that? Probably not, given his inconsistencies. And he's someone that could also get you something around the deadline. Like I've been saying this all week. Frederick to St. Louis makes sense. That's hilarious. Yeah, Frederick from St. Louis, Montgomery, reunite them. But like I've been saying this all week. Like people forget how crazy trade deadline deals are. Guys go for way more than they're worth. Like I think
Yeah.
you could get a legit package for Frederick. I'm not saying a first, a high end prospect, and all this stuff, but like I think you could sort of recoup some assets at least by dealing Frederick, given what I think teams think that he could be. But again, I think their focus is the playoffs. So, like as Michael said, if you want to be a true contender, you have to get a scoring winger. And do they use Frederick in a package to get someone better? That's another interesting thing. Do they package Frederick in a deal for someone better? I think that's the other part of it too.
And you mentioned that players go for weird prices.
I
let's
don't
not
think
forget
they could.
Tanner. Sorry, Dom. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I was going to say, let's not forget Tanner Jeannot went for a player and 5 draft picks.
That's the one. Like if you would somehow get like half of the Jeannot, take that. How do you not take that? You're the Bruins. You need picks. Like that would make sense to me. That would make sense.
I don't think they could handle the PR or the bad PR they would get losing DeBrusque and Frederick 2 years in a row for nothing.
That's the thing. Like a lot has walked out the door for nothing, and that, like you even look at like Tyler Bertuzzi. I mean, that was someone that everybody's like, oh, he's a great fit here. Re-sign him, and they didn't, and he's out. And so like, you've let some talent walk, and I agree with you. I think like you need to get something for Frederick, and maybe over the next month, like Frederick is outstanding, and they unlock something with him, and he's way more consistent. But I think I saw someone tweet. I think it was Bruins Network tweeted today, like 20 out of the 22 games Frederick just hasn't scored in this year. Like I think the kind of it's out there with him. Like I don't know if any hot month is going to change that, and the Bruins are going to go to the negotiating table and say, "All right, time to give you a huge deal." Like I'm with you. I think you need to get something for him, and it comes down to as I said, is that going to be a package full of draft picks, or are you going to package Frederick with other stuff and use that to try to upgrade in your top 6?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I wonder. I mean, there's a lot. Dom and I were talking about it before you jumped on. That there's just a lot of. It's a tight race across the board, especially once you factor in the wild card. There's going to be a lot of teams that they're more hesitant to sell.
Yeah, and there's that mindset of everybody's in it, or even if you have the Blues winning it in 2019, and you have the Oilers last year who got there, who were terrible to start, and it's like, oh, even if we're a wild card, we can make a run, or even if we're a third, in the Atlantic. And maybe that's like the recipe for the Bruins. Maybe they need to overcome adversity. Maybe they need, they can't just be killing teams the whole year like the last 2 years. Like maybe the year that they're third in the Atlantic is the year they win the whole thing. But they have a good core, right? You have Pastrnak, you have McAvoy, you have Swayman. It comes down to are the complementary pieces good enough? And this feels like a year where you're seeing the complementary pieces not being good enough. This is also the primary pieces are not being good enough either. So like that's out there too. But like Coyle, Zaka, Frederick Geeky, Carlos been rough at times. So again, like, is this your opportunity to deal some of those complementary pieces off and try to either get new complementary pieces or assets, draft picks, prospects? Like that's the other end of it too. So I don't know.
Yeah, on the YouTube side, Jason asks if Frederick is traded, would you rather a hockey trade or picks and prospects?
I mean, now that we're mentioning like a hockey trade, like if you could somehow package Frederick with like, this is where fans get crazy. You'll be like Frederick and Lysell and Merkulov for, Draisaitl and Edmonton or something. And it's like, no.
Don't forget the shooter tutor.
That's right. Yes. In the bag of pucks. This team needs picks. This team needs to make some draft picks. And that's where that's where my gut keeps telling me they need to go. So I didn't hate the Linus Ullmark trade because, obviously Kastlik and Korpisalo have worked out. So like, that's been great.
Yeah.
And I was down on Korpisalo at the time.
I told you in camp Korpisalo would be fine.
Yeah. And I'm not surprised he's better, but I was like, oh, that money, this and that. But then, you get to make a first round pick. And like, that's the other thing is like, if you can, they have their first for next year. If you can find another way to get in the first round and make 2 first rounders. And I know people are going to say, oh, the Bruins can't make their picks. Well, have a pick than not have those picks. So, and I know it's boring to watch a team retool. I agree, but hey, look, the fruit that was, bared from 2014-15, 2015-16 was good. They were competitive there for a long stretch. It's been about 10 years, which is insane, but it's been about 10 years. And it's okay. They've missed a lot of first round picks. They've dealt a lot away. And look, this roster could still rebound. They could, as I said, the next month they could go on a crazy tear and they're, back in the top of the league. They absolutely could. Like that's the thing. But given what they've shown so far, I'd be fine with dealing Frederick for picks and assets.
So Nikita Zadorov. Let's talk a little bit about it.
That says it all right there.
That's another complimentary piece I forgot to mention.
Yeah, so, he played for the London Knights in the OHL, and my main thing was covering draft eligible players from the Ontario Hockey League. And way back when, I didn't have.
You're going to see some more New England kids up there, by the way.
Yeah.
At that point, I'm thinking you're going to see some more New England guys.
Well, we are. I'm looking forward to it. Well, I didn't have a lot of nice things to say about Zadorov in his draft year. I'm not saying he was bad, but the things that we see today were existent back in his draft year. I saw last night, and I was mentioning it before you came on, that this system is much better suited for him that they're trying to do now. And I mentioned a specific play to the listeners where Peak was in the corner with a forward battling for the puck, and Zadorov took 2 strides from the front of the net to head that way, then stopped and remembered, hey, his job is to protect the net, and went back. Talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on Nikita Zadorov.
I find him to be someone like, I don't know if you guys have played like the NHL franchise in EA Sports. I didn't even buy NHL 25 this year because the game is just the same every year. It's a waste of money. But like, how in like when you do Be a Pro or you do like EA SHL and you make a player, it's never like a normal. It's 6'6" defenseman who just skates the puck every time and hits everybody that moves. That's sort of like Zadorov. Like Zadorov likes to rush the puck. Zadorov likes to pinch
Yeah.
at the opposing blue line. Zadorov likes to just wreck guys, and sometimes that's good and sometimes it's bad. And when you're a 500 team and below 500 like they have been, that's bad. And I think there's a lot of times with him where like just puck plays. There was that play obviously with Peak against Columbus. I don't think a goal resulted in it, but like even Brickley on the broadcast was like, what are they doing? Like just you're backing up towards your own goalie, making D to D passes, and Columbus is like, all right, well, we're just going to intercept it and start a whole offensive zone sequence. So to me, like I just his brain, I wonder about. And Dom, you could speak to it a lot better because you covered him coming up, and you can speak deeper to it. But like that's an area where it's like there is that potential with him, but there's also that potential that he makes a catastrophic mistake.
Yeah.
And so again, like I think it's an unfortunate sign for the Bruins that it's November 24th. He came in here and was signed to be like McAvoy's D partner, and he's on the third pair with Peak. Like I that's a scary thing. You have him. Was it a 5-year deal they signed him to, or was it
Yeah.
6?
Yes.
It was either
I think it was 5.
5. That's not a short contract. And again, the money's not going to cripple you. And maybe in 3 or 4 years, a number 3 defenseman is making $5 or $6 million. But I do think and maybe again, maybe now with Joe Sacco, you try Zadorov back up higher in the lineup, higher on the D. But I have not been impressed, as you can tell so far.
I have to say I've liked him better on the third pair with Peak since Lindholm went down. I like the Wotherspoon-Carlo pairing as a nice shutdown pairing. Obviously, I'd rather have Lindholm. I know I got to get that out there because people run with that one. But Zadorov with Peak, obviously, I don't like the idea of paying a third pair guy $5 million. But I think we just lost Dom for a minute. Dom, you still there audio wise? We'll give him a second.
It's always fun when it's live.
He's on. Yeah, his cord is unplugged before, and we tend to figure it out. But it is just about 8:00. So we can wrap up here shortly. If you got a little more time, though, that's awesome. But yeah, I like him on the third pair with Peak. I don't like the idea of paying him $5 million to be on the third pair. But also, I mean, if the cap is gonna jump up, even to 97, as Elliot Friedman mentioned, it doesn't cripple you. And
no, it doesn't. It doesn't cripple you. I think it's more so it's like another like Derek Forbort was the same way, where it was like Derek Forbort came in and it was like, we think he can be, a top pairing guy with McAvoy, and he couldn't be. And then, you have Zadorov come in. It's like, we think Zadorov could be a top pairing guy. It's sort of, it obviously doesn't cripple you cap wise. It's annoying when you go and have to make deals at the deadline, and it's sort of like the Backus deal where it was always an issue. But it's also like McAvoy's your top dog. Chara had Seidenberg for a few years there, and it worked out to awesome. McAvoy needs his guy, and he used to be Grizzlick. And they worked great together. And now obviously with Grizzlick gone, which again I don't think anyone's going to fight that. Like, you need someone that works well with McAvoy and can obviously McAvoy needs to be the guy on that pair, but you also need someone that helps unlock McAvoy a bit offensively, and that hasn't always been there. So Zadorov, I don't know. Like, is it Lowry? Is Lowry the guy down the road? I don't know. Lowry is very offensive. He's young. He loves to take chances. I also don't know about him being, McAvoy's guy. So I don't know. That's sort of my thing. Chris is just like, you thought Zadorov was going to be the top pairing guy, and he hasn't been. Maybe they go with Lindholm. They try that when he's back. I love Lindholm-Carlo. I think that's a terrific pairing. Like, Lindholm-Carlo is phenomenal. But I do wonder with the way Lindholm's been playing, if they're like, no, we want to activate McAvoy this way and put Lindholm up there. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, welcome back, Dom. I told you we'd get him back.
Yeah.
And in the YouTube chat, we have a question of would you trade Zadorov? And we're hearing about how Vancouver didn't want to pay him either, but now they're missing him. So
Yeah, did you see Elliot? Elliot wrote and it was he claimed it was pure speculation, but Elliot wrote earlier this week that what if Vancouver took Zadorov back? That's an interesting. I didn't think of that. Like I didn't think of that prior to that. That's
do
an
you
interesting.
think they miss him that much though?
I mean, again, what are you getting for him? Like, what's Vancouver giving up? You know, I assume they're taking all the money.
Jake DeBrusk.
I was going to say DeBrusk.
That would be
you
classic.
You can't make the deal until Lindholm is healthy.
No, you couldn't do anything until Lindholm's healthy.
Be creative with it.
What's the word on him, Evan? Is it like late December, early January that they're talking about him back?
I have no inside info on this. I would say, I mean, it's what's being said. Like and that's what's unfortunate is like he was playing so well.
Yeah.
It was looking like he was in 22, 23 form, and has this horrible injury happen to him. So I think it's sort of when they said it's going to be, which is late December. It's unfortunate, obviously, but. I mean, I hope it's more before then. Like, I'm not reporting that. I don't know for sure. I'm going off what they've hinted at so far.
Have they moved him to LTIR yet?
No, there's no need. They got too much money to move him. Unless you're at the cap, there's no point in putting anybody on LTIR. No point.
Yeah.
When they got $18,000 in cap space left, then that's when they'll do it.
Got to be like the Knights and just put everybody on LTIR.
Yeah, and
ramp up to the end of the year.
Exactly, and it's always LTIR is always retroactive. So when you do it, doesn't matter. Yeah. But we can never let anybody go without asking the big question, and that is the fourth line, Evan.
Oh, and God.
So, what are your thoughts
on the fourth line?
Yeah,
I mean, it's worked. Like they've been the one line that has been sort of stable, and I thought the most damning stat against the first 20 games of the season Bruins were that Cole Koepke had like no points in 8 straight games, and he was still the 4th highest scoring guy on the team. Like that says it all. But I think Kastelic has been a really nice surprise. I was worried that he would take too many penalties after the preseason, and it actually wasn't the issue at all with him. And I think he sort of brings that Energizer Bunny sort of presence down the middle, which is nice. Definitely is willing to drop the gloves, physical on the forecheck. Does have a little bit of offensive touch to him as well. Cole Koepke's sort of cooled down a bit, but I think encouraging stuff from him. And the question with Beecher is like, what is he? I think he's a 4th line guy. Like I think that's what he is. He's a sort of a Daniel Paille type, and that's okay. Like that's okay as long as he's doing his job and providing value, which he has. So the 4th line is like least of anybody's concerns, obviously, because they've done their job, and they were a ton of points at the beginning of the season. You can't expect that to continue. Like they started losing a bunch of games, and it's like, oh, where's the 4th line scoring? Well, they're the 4th line. Like you gotta take it, So you can't expect it every game. So
I think it didn't hurt. It didn't help that Montgomery broke them up several times to try and get everybody else going.
He's broken up a lot of lines.
Right. That was the one consistent thing he was doing. I do like the fact, though, that those 3 have shown that they can go back together and still play at a high energy pace. They may not have the goal scoring right away, but the pace, the energy, the flow is there. So I like that about them.
And you don't have to worry about them getting scored on.
Yes. No, that line is good. That 4th line works. And that's one thing I think, like, Marchand mentioned kind of breaking up the lines. Or Montgomery breaking up the lines. And I think, if Sacco they've obviously won 2 games. So there's no reason to break up any lines, but I do think it's interesting that I wonder how much he doesn't change the lines because, again, that was something that didn't work with Montgomery. And he just made. I would like them to keep the lines together. I mentioned it to you earlier, like Lindholm back on that top line, like, and leave it. Just leave it be. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like, you've got not a lot to lose at this point. So again, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, as JFM says, I don't miss the incessant line blending.
Yeah.
It's nice to not look at the practice lines and go, what in the is he doing today?
There was a lot of that in
Exactly.
the last couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah. Dom, it's a little after 8. I promised Evan we would be done around 8. So I got to ask you, do you have any other final questions for Evan as we round things out here?
No, I baked cookies for you, Evan. I ate them before you came on, though. Sorry, buddy.
Come on.
But no, I would just
Don't
want
worry,
to
I
say
didn't get
thanks
any
for
either. So
it was a nice.
I just want to say thanks for popping on.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys. It's nice, Chris. You and I talked at Dev Camp, but Dom, you and I obviously we always know each other through Twitter, so it's great to finally get to converse like this live for people to watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was great chatting with you at Dev Camp, and I'm glad we were finally able to get this done and have you on, and hopefully it's the first of many times. And
absolutely.
Let's see. Question just came in: does Kostelic have the ability to play up in the lineup?
I would err on no. I think he's in a good spot on that fourth line as the center. I don't think.
Agree.
I wouldn't press my luck. I wouldn't press my luck moving him up.
He's fine down there. Like, and that's one thing. And I think fans always want like, oh, guys, great on the fourth line, they can move up. And like, yeah, Brad Marchand in 2011, yes, that makes sense. But a guy like Kostelic, who's kind of established what he is, I'm good with him down there. I think that's completely fine.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, I think a lot of people keep Brad Marchand in the back of their head and forget just how good of a goal scorer he was. Like, he always had a good shot and could find the net, and he just worked his way into the lineup and then said, I can also do this, I can also do that, and just kept proving it and earned his way up. And then he's ultimately become one of the best left wingers in the game for many years. So he has something that other players down there don't have. But again, thank you so much for jumping on. Do you have any final thoughts, Evan? I always give our guests the final thought here before we sign off. And definitely let people know where they can find your work.
Yeah, I think we hit on everything. Montgomery, just the overall state of the team. Subscribe to New England Hockey Journal, and Bruins Beat is out. Go just subscribe to Bruins Ringside on YouTube. There's so many Bruins podcasts with us, but also, there's you guys. There's a lot of people are always like, oh, do you get competitive with other podcasts? The answer is no. It's a podcast. You can listen to it when you want. You can listen to Bruins podcasts all day. Doesn't matter when we're on, when we're not on. So go subscribe to Bruins Ringside. There's a bunch over there, and New England Hockey Journal. So lots of good stuff. It's a busy time of year, but it's fun.
Your podcasts are great. You can. I'll put a YouTube on my TV and I'll sit and watch you guys.
Thank you, Dom, by the way.
And I'll take the pictures and go, guess what I'm watching? Yeah.
Thank you, Dom.
I will listen to them in my earpods while I'm doing paperwork at work. So, you guys do a great job. And, it's like I said, it's been a great having you on. I know in the past I've had Ty on. You guys are all awesome. And, I can't thank you enough. And at the end of the day, as we say here, go Bees.
Yeah, go
Bees. They gotta turn
it
around at some point. Yeah, they gotta turn it around.